Good morning. Today is Wednesday, March 6th at 9:31 a.m. This is the monthly meeting for the Southampton Council on Aging Board. I'm Janet Kane, the chair. You want to just go around and introduce ourselves for the camera?
Lori Gloisel, the secretary.
Milda Cohen.
Yvonne Batty Davis.
Marie Jordan. Josie Allen, treasurer.
Okay, great. So, meetings were called to order and nobody's here from the public. Welcome, Rini. And the minutes. I had sent Lori a couple of additions.
Do you want me to go over them? Or-
Yeah, do you want to do that? After she
So
sent it to us.
everybody has the minutes in front of them. On page 1, under the Friends, at the very last sentence, it should be seniors 65 and over. So 65 would be the clue.
Let's get our minutes up. Does everybody have the minutes?
Oh, they're in here. Go with
Buddha,
me.
Buddha.
Okay. And then it,
Well, we were talking about the population of the town and, right.
let me read the whole sentence. Seniors 65 and over represent 31% of the town's population, and for 55 and over, it is 40%. So that was one
That's under
correction.
the Friends, right?
Then on page 2, the very first sentence, talking about the van,
Underneath director's report? Right.
the side of the bus scraped. That scraped the overhang. So scraped is the secret word.
It was more of a scrape, yeah. Just a-
Yeah.
There you go.
Then if we move down to the treasurer's report, and I can't thank you enough because I could not hear what, I got gift account and that was all. So I appreciate you picking that up. Second sentence after Council on Aging, it should read, gift account under COA revenue.
So Nilda had questions regarding the Council on Aging gift account under the Council on Aging revenue.
Josie stated that she had not noticed the column and would follow up with the town accountant. And I believe that was it, unless somebody else has something they would like to comment on.
That was it, I didn't know that. Motion? To accept the
To
minutes?
accept.
Josie moved. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
As modified, okay.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. One abstention, sorry.
Okay.
We're going to, this is for the bylaws, the final page that have been approved by the select board, so if you could just sign either under your title or
I think it would.
under just member. It doesn't say just member, it says member.
I don't have to sign.
You don't have to sign.
Okay.
Okay. So Lori, you would have an update on
Update
the
of the
Friends
Friends.
since Kay
The
is not
Friends-
here.
Yeah. Friends met yesterday. We started out with Naomi from the Polish Credit Union, and I'm sure Joan will talk about that in her director's report. But they are going to sponsor September's luncheon. It's going to be a Polish feast. What else did we do? They updated all the luncheon menus. They have a nice variety, so it should be really a great year. Got everything covered. They have there was a conversation regarding entertainment as opposed to speakers, and it was decided by the Friends. They will have entertainment on special occasions and speakers on other luncheons. Of course, I left my notes back in.
Oh, that's all right. It was only yesterday. You have a sharp memory.
Yeah, no, so I'm going on memory. What else did we do?
Thank you. Okay.
I think that was about it. They will cover, and they cover for the next 5 years, the senior center maintenance, which is $1,200, and Friends takes care of that. Other than that, it was an hour meeting, right on the nose.
Good. And is there a balance, do they have a balance that they shared, or?
They do.
Are they-
It's 7,000 plus.
Okay. We have to figure out how to help them spend that.
They did return $165 for postage for the newsletter. That was part of the treasurer's report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for doing that, okay? And we'll move right into the director's report.
So hopefully, does everybody have a copy? So we had 142 phone calls, 33 walk-ins, 6 plus emails, 67 rides, helping 14 individuals, and we also had volunteers helping 5 people with 10 rides. We count each ride back and forth, the return ride. The walking group is doing fabulous. We added 4 new people over at Eastworks. I still haven't made it there yet, but I'm planning to get there one of these days on a Friday. Yeah.
Are you doing it 3 times or twice?
We're generally Monday, Wednesday, Friday, generally. Yeah.
Weather permitting. I think
Weather
this
permitting.
Monday. This Monday we closed. I don't know if anybody knew that. The town hall was 2-hour delay. Our Monday schedule was bare, besides the walking club, which was off campus. So we did close. We did have meetings. I was here after 10:30.
So I think it's been, just to come, I think it's been working out pretty well, because now Joan is posting it at least on channel NBC, right? Channel 22.
No, yes.
Yeah, I saw it on, I looked on there, and it was there. It's not on 40.
No.
For the most part, we'll follow the town hall's lead if they delay, if they close. It just happened to be that Monday there wasn't anything happening, so I closed the center.
And with 7 inches of snow, it probably was a good call. We kind of text back and forth. You text with Ed, and you and I texted.
Transportation.
6 something in the morning.
Yeah, it's hard
I'm
to
up
tell
with
at
the
6
dog,
o'clock in the
so.
morning, yeah. The transportation is always a little tricky, having to cancel that. And by 11 o'clock, it was sunny and dry, but who knew? Anyway, and we
So
were
we're
there.
definitely not following if the schools are closed, we're closed.
No longer. We have our own spot on the television, so.
Because I think the problem with that was always that when Hampshire Regional, which has all the hill towns involved, might close, and this could be perfectly fine down here, so we're using more local decision-making versus that expansion.
I was looking at like other transportation places, if they were canceling transportation, which they did, and other senior centers, what they were doing. Some were delayed, some were closed. You may note that we did have a parking problem on the 6th. That was the day of our last meeting. That was the day of the health department had a regional meeting, and they used our parking spaces, and then we couldn't have bingo. So that was an unfortunate thing. It was just a snowball effect that no one anticipated. It's one thing to invite people to your facility, but especially this time of year when we don't have the extra parking, we had to cancel. And then we had to cancel again for snow the following week, so we were without our largest group a couple weeks in a row.
I understand from Ed that he's asking if they're having group meetings like that, that would affect us, especially on a Wednesday, to park at the police station and have them walk over instead of taking up the senior center parking, so.
So it's resolved. Sometimes things have to happen before you can fix them, right? So it's, obviously it's all right here. We did our first square dance, and actually Nilda was a participant. Did you have a good time? There were a lot of smiles. It was, I think it's
We laughed a lot.
just having music, yeah. Just having music. He's a great guy. He's right here in Huntington. A widower who's looking for extra things to be doing. So I'm so glad that we tried it. We're doing it for 3 months. We'll take the summer off and see how it goes. Nilda said, well, why don't we do it twice a month? And we probably could, but I'm not sure that he's
You're gonna forget the
he's
steps, that's the
available.
only reason. That was part of my biggest problem.
But that's why the calling part of it is so good.
I know, but-
Yeah. Let's see what else things are going on. Today we start our class, the DOPA Fit class. We have 8 participants signed up. we'll see how it goes. Myself or Darlene's going to sit in on it just to see what it's all about. So we're working on a few projects. I don't know, Rini, I think you had offered to do a talk from hospice, and we may work it in for
Yeah, Lori
April.
sent an email, I think, yesterday.
Yeah,
so-
I'm checking in with Kathy Anderson.
Yeah, good. And we're going to have a stew day the end of the month provided by Care One. I'm working on a nice project with the church and the grant, the cultural grant. It's a World War II, The Greatest Generation. It's on a Saturday afternoon, and they're going to recognize our World War II vets that lost their lives. There was quite a few from our town that were involved in World War II. So it should be a nice program. It's on a Saturday afternoon, so we're a little bit out of our box. But they have a bigger space, they have a stage and a bigger space, so they're hosting it. But I was involved
When
with
is that
setting
again?
it up. It's May 4th.
Is Jerry Parquet involved in that?
Not yet, but he should be.
Right.
I will get him on my email.
Is the cultural
Grant?
grant, is that money that they've applied?
Right.
Because I thought they already gave out the money.
Well, they have to play in October, and they
Right.
give it out in
For the spring.
March. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the fellow who's playing for the Irish Day on Friday is part of the grant,
Okay,
and this is part of the grant.
okay.
How are you reaching out to people to let them know about it?
So we just got the flyer, and it's going to be in the next newsletter, and it could be in the Gazette. I'm just initially, it's
And the Robert
May
Floyd?
4th.
Yeah, we'll get it on
Robert Floyd.
Yeah.
We'll include him in the emails as well. It is Veterans Memorial Month, so maybe that could be like the start of that.
Is it open to people from all towns?
Yes, it's free, open to the public, family friendly. They're wearing
And what time is
authentic
it on the
military. It's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday.
May 4th.
May 4th. So this all came together this week because they've been emailing me about did they get the grant. And I think Lucy, with Janine leaving and all, she had just gotten the grants out. So this is just all coming together with the pastor from the church.
How much did we get?
How much did we
How
get?
much did we get awarded?
This is not my grant, this
Oh,
belongs
it
to the
was
Small
that.
Planet Dancers.
Oh.
All we were doing was trying to find a venue that was friendly for everybody. The senior center, we couldn't fit it in the senior center,
Okay,
but it involves World War II people who are obviously seniors,
but we in the past have gotten
grants.
separately, yeah, it's really funded the art, because,
Right.
what's her name?
Yeah, Betty.
Yeah, Betty used to come.
Right,
and
she's
they
in
enjoyed
her 90s now. and
I know,
she said
she's
she
not doing
won't-
it anymore,
But she might do an art show for us. But I did not apply for any grants
Okay.
for this. The only thing we have is the music programs that are involved with the Friends, and we're trying to help out a little bit with payment of music.
Okay.
Richard Leclerc would be a good person to reach out to. Do you know him?
Yeah, she knows Richard, yeah. Nancy.
Oh, we have my little cat, my gold star cat.
I think they're from your church too, aren't they?
Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing right now is we're involved with looking at a new refrigerator. It's 19 years old. We have money to utilize, so the refrigerator, a hand-down faucet, a water purifier system that Ed found in Boston that's linked right into our plumbing. So we're looking at a few additions. A computer desk that's officially a computer desk, maybe a privacy desk, they call them Corrals. We're looking at that. So in the next 3 months, we have to spend down our grant, so.
And then the pickleball, once the weather
And the
gets a little-
pickleball in the spring, right. So
There's another meeting on the 20th, so we'll talk to,
March 20th?
yeah,
Oh,
for the parks, so
for the park.
we'll get more
So,
updates for you.
just so
after
you
that.
know how grants are going, we do have, one I think it's till the end of May, one's to the end of June to spend it. So we are actively talking about what we're doing. We're getting prices and working with Vicki and and how to purchase large items. So, things are moving.
So just as a quick correction, I didn't see this before, but on the 19th, the strategic planning meeting, it was not the Friends, it was the COA board for our strategic planning for 5-year plans.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
It was
because I
two
know
different,
this.
I had a 10 o'clock meeting and 11 o'clock
Okay.
planning. It was two different things that day. I had a 10 o'clock meeting for strategic planning and 11 o'clock for
with Friends.
Fosco
Oh, okay, I see, those are
lunches.
two separate things.
They
Gotcha,
were-
gotcha. I see you.
Yeah, it was,
Thank you.
some days are more meetings than others.
Okay, great. And I just want to introduce Francine Fishman from the Master Plan Implementation Committee has joined us as well, and we are being recorded for those people that came in afterwards, so.
Can I just ask a question? On the breakdown of the rides, this is a new reporting format in the past. I don't remember if you indicated how many volunteers
That's new, because
out there.
we
And then
really are...
did you do any of those rides? Because in the past you have.
Yes,
Okay.
and I think I put them in my report when I had to go somewhere
Okay.
to pick up. I
So,
picked up the
one of
CDs
the
for
things that
cards.
someone raised was whether the volunteers, because it is a liability exposure for the town, whether we should also follow the same requirements that FRTA, not, training and all that stuff, but
Getting a driving report?
Yeah, because sometimes, those things show up things that reflect court judgment. It could be speeding or tickets, and so I don't know. I don't know.
I think
if you
Flo,
might-
I
well,
think you said
they
Flo
have to
does
go
call
through-
afterwards, right?
All our
So there's a
services
phone
are,
follow-up.
there's a phone follow-up with all the services, and that's how we find out if they were happy with their drivers, et cetera.
Yeah.
And
But-
don't
But
they
I-
have
you
to
know,
go
just
through-
check.
Are you talking about a quarry?
They've been,
No,
they're all
Quarry,
quarried.
that's automatic. I'm just talking about that
It
additional
sounds like it's
layer.
already happening, I guess is what I'm
Well, the
saying.
quarry,
Flo follows up with the people after.
she's
No,
saying
no,
that
but
we
this
should
is-
go to the registry and make sure they have a driving record.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that
I
appear in the
didn't-
And then if anything happens, the town is covered, that they have that extra layer of protection.
I don't think it would show up on a quarry
And
necessarily.
when,
It only shows up on your court if you have, like, charges from drunk
Right.
driving.
All right,
You're
so
gonna check my driving record?
I don't know if there's a
So how
cost
do you-
associated
I
with
mean,
that.
when staff was taking clients to different, their individual insurance covered them, but they had that additional, to make a judgment if something was happened, we can avoid
So
that
who-
person.
Maybe the police chief. would-
Yeah, I was gonna say, who would be responsible for
The
that?
police
So
chief?
that's a good
Just ask
suggestion,
him.
yeah.
What that would involve. They do checks all the time.
For driving?
DUI.
Because we don't really have a mechanism to do that.
But I think you have to let the person know too.
Oh, sure, but they'd have to do
I
it
mean,
like
they
you
have
do
to
the quarry.
sign something, release or something, and they may say, listen, no.
We mean, with
But at least you know.
Well, I hope
Yeah,
we don't
I
have
mean-
volunteers with extensive drug driving records driving people.
No, I'm not.
I can't imagine.
Never know.
I mean, we do take it on face value. The people that have been, are on our list are people that we know. Most of them are, respectable. To look at them, I would not expect them to have speeding
Well,
tickets.
we have
Going through stop
Janet,
signs
so
still.
there's questionable.
I guess then you'd have to figure out
Being recorded.
what is going to be acceptable, and are you going to allow the person to,
Well, we may
do
not.
this, or if they have a single, ran a stop sign.
It's a judgment
once, is
call.
that-
I mean,
Yeah.
there's been, if somebody has
It's multiple.
an issue at the age of 18 and now they're 50, and because that'll still be on the record, you just make a judgment. That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm talking about a pattern
Recent.
that reflects, a judgment call, going through a stop sign, whatever. You need to know.
Would that even be recorded? I got stopped one time coming down the hill on College Highway with my grandsons in the car.
But we can't have you volunteering anywhere. We're gonna have to deal with
She's got a
that.
heavy foot, that's
We got a problem.
And I got a warning, so.
Well, that wouldn't be on
No,
record.
that's not gonna be
Well,
on.
that's what I'm saying, so,
Yeah.
a lot of these.
We only have 6 or 7 people, and we can find out if
Yeah,
there's...
well, let's follow up on that and see.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were to check mine, I have a speeding ticket. So, I mean,
Well, let's,
maybe I
It
should be
depends on when
driving.
it happened. Has it happened since you came here?
No.
Okay.
trying to get to work on time.
Yeah, I mean, these things
Like
happen.
everybody, at some point, you know, you might run into a lot of people with
Yeah,
tickets,
sure.
but it's just if you have like criminal driving offenses that you have to look at.
Go up College Highway. when
Any other
it goes
questions
from
on the
40 to
director's
30
report?
green.
Okay.
Madam Chair? Yes. May I, please? Before we get into the treasurer's report, which I'm sure will bring up many questions, could we move to the master plan initiative?
Are you making a motion
I am making a motion that we move to the master plan first.
in consideration?
That's-
Anybody have a
I would
second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Sure.
Yes.
Fine.
Okay. So moved, so passed. You guys haven't seen each other in a while, huh? You two haven't seen each other in a while?
Yeah.
12 hours or something?
I'm so sorry for our last night.
I saw Reed at 10 o'clock last night.
Yeah, that's what I mean, 12 hours ago.
Did you get nominated for any other committees?
Two, yes, I got
I saw the
two
two.
hours last night. Yeah, two. She and Jim are going at it. They were knowing each other left and right. I just stay out of the fray. All right. Anyway, I'm here to kind of bring everybody up to speed as to where we are in terms of the master plan. The master plan was completed in 2013, and this report was published. The master plan committee no longer exists, but what they put in its place to carry out the goals and objectives of this plan is they established a master plan implementation committee, which, according to town records, hasn't met since 2015. So we have established a new master plan implementation committee, and obviously there's a tremendous amount of work and information that went into this document. We have a huge learning curve to bring ourselves up to speed in terms of what has transpired since the plan was originally developed until today. So some of the things may have been done deliberately in following the plan, and others may have occurred incidentally over the last 6 years now. So obviously the plan was written to improve the lives and the conditions of everyone living in Southampton. But there are some areas that are specific to the Council on Aging, and so I'm going to pass this around, and what I'm handing you is a summary of the goals and the strategies and the responsible parties for...
There should be 8, I think.
Is this what was emailed? I printed one.
Well, just the top, it was emailed, so there's a couple other backup pages. I didn't want to email everybody everything, because how many emails can you?
Liz probably knows a lot of this stuff because George is also on the committee. But anyway, so I did pull those goals that specifically mention the Council on Aging as having a responsible role along with other boards, committees, and departments in the town. So there are probably 6 or 8 here. And what we're all doing is we're trying to meet with different committees and boards to get a sense of, from 2015 to now, what has transpired, if anything, in trying to achieve the goals that were outlined in the master plan. So thus far, we've met with the Greenway Committee, so here I am meeting with you folks. And I'd like to go over these. It's just to get a sense from you whether or not, and you may not know this information, any of these goals have been attempted? Have we succeeded? Have there been obstacles identified and therefore they weren't pursued? Has nothing been done? Do you want to scrap this one and start something else? I mean, we're really trying to get to update the master plan so that whatever it is that we finally establish will be what the residents in the town today would like us to pursue on their behalf. There won't be significant changes, I'm sure, but some things may have gone by the wayside. Anyway, so like I said, everything in here affects every one of us across the board. These are the ones in which the Council on Aging was specifically mentioned. So that's the first part. Behind, there's another attachment there, which is a copy of the section where they're talking about elder services. So one of the changes I would make is call it senior services in the next line. But that was the description of the Council on Aging when this was written in 2015. So if we could take a few minutes, look through these, see if you have any questions that I can answer. If there's any information that you can give me today that I can update the rest of our committee on, fine. You can get back to me if after this meeting you think of something that may be applicable or you have other questions. Feel free to contact me or anybody on the Master Plan Committee, and I'll give you those names
I have
before I leave.
a comment and a question. I've been on the COA board for a substantial amount of time. I don't remember them ever coming, Hank, who was the chair, and did a superb job talking to us. So some of these, unless they talked to just the director, but it was, I don't recall a board meeting. And my question is, I know that the Housing Authority group, that I also think they've done a stellar job. That committee was very impressive, knowledgeable, and I know that they've, various reasons, they don't have the same core group of people. Have they gotten, because I think they were down a couple of members, right, in terms of the Housing Authority too?
I can speak to that.
Yeah, you use the liaison, right? Are you-
No,
or
because they don't
just-
really have a liaison, but what happened was they were very active and they were trying very hard to try to figure out how to use community preservation funds for the housing, because that's the biggest pot that's not being spent because of the limited options. So they were involved with trying to pair up with Habitat for Humanity. They were trying to look for ways to increase affordable housing in town and having seniors age in place. They've come up against a brick wall a lot. So what's happened recently is their person on the committee who had a tremendous amount of knowledge about this was on the Housing Authority as a job in Holyoke, died, unfortunately. So then there's a new person on the committee that works for the VA involving with housing, and he, I think, is on the Master Plan Committee, is Jim. And then Charlie, Chuck Kennedy, Charlie's son, is on the committee, and then Jenica Reynolds, who's been a very involved person, is actually giving up her seat this spring. So that's been a problem with the committee. They did do a couple things. They passed the bylaw that allowed, although it hasn't really worked, because they basically passed a bylaw saying that the 10th house in a development has to be affordable house. So everybody builds 8 or 9 houses. And then the other thing that they did recently is they used community preservation funds, the administrative ones, which don't have to go to town meeting for approval. They paid for a party inviting a lot of builders and planning board members and things like that to try to find out what are the barriers for doing affordable housing, to try to find out on the builder's end, why is this such a hard thing to do and what are the financial restrictions. I never got really a written report about that. I don't even know how well it was attended, but that happened within the last 6 months. So that's kind of where they're at.
Yeah, it looks like your last meeting was in October.
Yeah, they only meet as needed. And there was a time, I went to the meeting when Anne that died, and I basically was in touch with Easthampton Woods, and I was trying to find out, like, how did they build that, and how did they deal with the sewer issue, and what about the water, and what could we do similarly like that. But they used a lot of Hilltown Cooperative or Hilltown grants that are no longer available. So I still have that email actually in my inbox that talked a little bit about Easthampton Woods, because we were saying it would be wonderful if we end up having a public safety complex, and if we end up having the old town hall be a cultural/senior center, that we could do something with, in Florida, we have land right behind the town hall here, that we could do something, it's town land. That would be a pretty central area for...
The land that we bought for the septic?
But that would be very central, it would be walking distance to the senior center. I mean, so a lot of people these are just like throwing around ideas, and what about if we had gotten the land up on College Highway, that is like walking distance to potentially a public safety complex, potentially walking distance to some stores and places to get something to eat, walking distance and a central route. So people are just throwing ideas around, but unfortunately, the committee itself has had a lot of changes, and I don't think they're active group to try to look at senior housing or affordable housing.
So we have the state rep and the senator who both come once a month or, every other month. And I think we should get them on board too with,
Yeah.
what, at the state level, what they can, what's the conversation, what's the discussion about, financing housing, especially for seniors and veterans.
Yeah.
They come.
I mean, the seniors, when you think about it, their taxpayer dollars come with very little expense, whereas families' taxpayer dollars are offset by the expenses that they cost to the town. So trying to get us to stay here in town and age in place is cost-effective for our community. I don't think most people understand or look at it that way, and if we can, I mean, I'm happy to go to a housing meeting when they have one.
So to get back to this,
Yeah.
because just exactly what you said, the information that you just provided to me, if it's not been documented and sent to the implementation committee, we don't have a clue that this discussion has taken place, that maybe there were some opportunities identified, maybe there were some barriers that were identified. How do we move this forward? So
I would say
helping
that
us to do
Jim,
this.
the representative to
Yeah.
master plan,
Yes.
and Jenica, has all this historical information, if the two of them came and did some sort of a update
We're gonna
or
be-
written document or something saying, this is, because Jenica, before she leaves, was involved in the zoning or the bylaw, she was involved in the habitat. She actually keeps it, the problem is, here's another problem too. It happens like there are young people in town that want to stay in town and are looking for houses, and they're all $500,000 to $1 million homes. And I know a number of my kids' friends who, that did end up buying houses in town, but the level of affordable housing is incredibly high. But a lot of people qualify that don't even realize it. But the problem is these lower price houses are scooped up very quickly. So Jenica keeps her eye on these things, and by the time she actually follows up on it, there's already a, sale pending sign on it.
I haven't been to any of those meetings, but I've sort of kept my interest because I feel that, we keep, I don't call you Rennie, I call you Maureen.
Either one.
It's easier in my brain. You've been very impressive on the board with the knowledge and the involvement that you've had on different, and that was one of the select board meetings that the chair, Reynolds, was leaving, and so, but I was very impressed with her, just her energy and her her delivery and information. I think that I'd be interested to know what came out of that meeting that they think are obstacles, because, we have an issue that, Southampton takes care of itself. People are comfortable enough that they don't have this need. So we have this image, but we still have this population. And conservation money, preservation money, is part of what should be spent on them. It's all our money.
Yeah.
So, people need to know that we're not taking additional money out of the pot to be able to provide these services. And I think it's a social issue, it's an economic issue, and these are really, I think, more of a major problem. Then we need the land. We need to know where we can accommodate so that they do have access to all the conveniences, walking distance to where they are, or at least transportation.
Since we don't have other
So, I mean,
transportation in
if we
town.
go through this, housing, transportation,
Can I just mention one more thing?
Yes.
Tonight is a county preservation committee meeting, and I'm the representative from the select board, and Jenica is the representative from housing. If she's there tonight, and if she's not, I'll send her an email. But I think that she community preservation funds were used for this builders event. And so I think unless, when I was away, there may have been a community preservation, because I think I was away the first week of the month in January. She may have reported back to the board on it, but it should be something in writing about what it was, because it did use town funds for that. So I can ask her to follow up with you.
The Council on Aging could be a conduit of information, that they become aware of the situation of different seniors in the town that can be fed to the housing authority, that we can, can start to drive this thing. Because that's just one of the issues. I mean, if we look down through, it's,
Because it's both ends of the population.
rehabbing housing for seniors. I mean, there are many people who probably have to leave their house because it's no longer accessible, they can't function independently in it. So for some modest resources perhaps made available to them, their house could be modified to suit them. They could remain in their home and in their community and independent.
But
So,
that's different than the
That's-
community preservation.
right.
No, but I mean, can they use community preservation, or does
I
that
believe
have to be the
They do it in
block
other
grant?
communities, keeping people in their homes and making modifications.
So we need to think, but unless we have specific examples to feed to these groups, to drive their thinking, and, there's nothing like the reality of what people are living to help people envision what it could be and make it happen for them. So these are really just broad strokes. Looking to the next one, seeking to implement for community development block grant housing that's related to the first one. And we talked about historic, or I didn't talk about, in the document it says it includes the Council on Aging as a source of information on historic and cultural resources for the town. They're making that assumption, I think, just because people are older than they have. But there may be some information.
They may have the photographs to put
They
on
may
display.
have photos, newspaper articles, whatever can contribute to the town's history and historic and cultural
Would
preservation.
are we talking about state funds to help us only, or are we eligible to have federal money? Because I have a friend who's worked for HAP for years, and she tells me about all this money that the federal government is throwing at them, and they've got all these housing developments in Northampton, and they're income driven in terms of, I don't know, do we have HAP in here? I mean, do we have the opportunity? I mean, even I thought about Tom Cross's land, although it's not Tom Cross anymore, but, that's all. I don't know whether that would be something that would be...
Next to the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, it's, now we have a light. Do we have a light or something?
No, just
some kind of a flashlight. But, that's the
crosswalk.
kind of thing that you kind of have to have at least an intro and say, is Southampton's, do they have an opportunity? What steps do you? Because she thinks that the federal government has really been extremely generous, and they're spending it.
Yeah.
I think Agawam, didn't they have an issue with, didn't they build something in Agawam?
They tried to, but they fought it, so
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure that it happened.
Anyway, so
But, I mean,
that's how I...
sourcing funds has to be, part of what each of these coalitions of committees pursue in order to make some of this happen. This is, for instance, we're looking at transportation. How do we get even one bus going down Route 10 that connects Westfield and Northampton, so that people who don't drive or won't drive out of town but will drive to the bus stop in Southampton can go and shop and eat and get out and socialize.
I had a conversation with Humes Transportation, who takes care of seniors and disabled, and they said that we can only deal with FRITA. We can't deal with PVTA. I don't know why that is.
Well, we
Well, we
can't
have to
as a
pursue
senior
that.
center, but
Right.
they have a stop at Big Y, and seniors can get to Big Y,
Right.
and then
That's
they
what
can
we're
get
talking
the
about.
bus in, or wherever the stop is, it doesn't have to be
Yeah, I mean,
related to the
we
senior
have to
center.
start with a feasibility study. We've got to get PVTA and FRITA together, along with representation from the town, to see how we can work out something that's amenable to both, and whoever else, and maybe get people, our local representatives involved. But just identifying what are goals and what at the time were strategies that were developed they thought would work. Maybe those strategies are no longer applicable. But so let's think about other ways in which we can get to the same point if we have to make these changes.
Maureen, do we have anything ongoing with PVPC, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission? Because they used to do a number of things with
We
us.
just found out last night that we got a $10,000 grant to do the open space and recreation plan. So we're involved in that. We're partnering, I think, with on a grant. It's PVPC though, that just got mentioned last night with Westfield and another town, just looking into, remember that, what that was about last night?
Westfield and Southwick.
Yeah, and it had to do with...
Was that with the
It had
dispatcher?
The
regionalization of dispatch.
But that's
For
something
the
that
police
I'm aware
department,
of.
police and fire?
Yes.
Because, I mean, I know some of the nonprofits I've been involved with, and they've helped a lot of the hill towns, you
Yeah.
know, for various, I mean, because they really are in big need of multiple things. And, I mean, they've always been a good resource. I mean, even just to have a conversation.
right.
Because they do have, I mean, they used to
I know.
have good teams.
I
mean,
did contact the PVPC because they actually were the authors of the document. They helped.
Yeah.
And they said that they would be willing to continue to provide consulting services to us, but we have to identify for them, what do we want to do?
Yeah.
So while we're in the process of identifying what changes, what would we like to do, how would we prioritize,
Yeah.
they then said that they would seek grant funds in
Yeah.
order to provide us the assistance because we can't afford to pay them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they would do the whole thing once
They're a
we
good resource, I
have a
think.
plan. So all we're trying to do at this point is update the information that we have, bring that all together. We will make a decision probably by the fall of whether or not a survey of town residents is in order. Again, if we find, that there's very little connection with the information that we're gathering based to, connection to what this document represents. So we have a lot of background and groundwork to do before we move it forward, but this is a step in that direction. So if anyone has any information related to these goals and objectives, not necessarily today, if you could get it to me, I'd appreciate it. We'll incorporate it when we do our update and come back to you. We have meetings usually every other Monday, right here at 7 o'clock at night, Monday nights.
So I
The
know
next one is this coming Monday.
for goal number 7, we talk about property tax work-off program. Today, we're having Martha come in and talk to us about also the senior exemptions, because we have some flexibility in lowering the age to senior exemptions to 65 from 70 for those income areas. And, like I said, that we have very little expense that our seniors have
So you're
burden the town. So
Lowering it from 70 to 65?
we're going to discuss it today,
Okay.
answer questions, and probably try to put an article on
Okay.
the town meeting.
When we talked about that, we said we needed to know what the net effect would be, because, I mean, the correlation of one versus the other.
Well, we have 24 people in town that take advantage. I think half of them are the 175 and half of them are 1,000. I guess my issue with this as advocates for the seniors, we don't scrutinize who buys a house in town and who costs the town $24,000 in school funds when they're only paying $7,000 in taxes. So I don't want to scrutinize the seniors so closely because we don't want to give them $175. There's no way for us to know how many people between 65 and 70 are in that income, other than the
So you
documentation
think that it's
that's
more
here.
of a goodwill than really
I
a net
think it's
effect?
and to encourage those people to stay in our town, to continue to contribute the taxes that they are contributing versus selling to a family that's going to cost the town more money. So for $1,000 or $175, can we help to take a step to encourage and advocate for our seniors to stay in the
But
town?
you're going to have a dollar amount of the...
How do we know what seniors from 65 to 70 are in that income range? Because it's confidential information. We don't have access to it. But if you look at some of the master plan information,
yeah, there-
and you look at how many, it's
The income.
there.
Yeah,
this sheet
Yeah.
right here, I mean, it says, and this is, at this time, 65 years and older, 160 individuals are making $15,000 or less. So how do we
This
help
data
to
is
keep them
from-
in town? And
20,
this is from 2010 data, so.
Well, I just think you're going to have to say something in the fact that they're using very little services, make a
Well, we can
case, I think.
justify the expenses
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they don't cost the town
Right.
today. I don't know that we can say how many seniors are going to
and
actually.
I think the other important part of this is making seniors aware of whatever benefits are available to them,
Right.
period.
When I was on the school renovation and expansion, when we were trying to get that, because I think it was 75-25, the argument, we were looking at it, because people do come and say,
Downstairs.
people say, these people are draining the resources of the town, and we try to sort of segregate who was getting the most benefit. It kind of got a little sensitive.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of pulled away from that because we can't, people come in here, they can afford to come in here. You're not going to, have sort of a backroom requirement that you say, okay, they've got their max, they're not getting any more. You can't do that. I mean, it's just kind of, that's not what happens. But the bottom line is that there's going to be an increased need for senior services, regardless of your economic base. And I found that throughout my years, you have to make the call. You have to ask. People sometimes are very generous with information, bankers, nonprofits. And so that's how collectively you bring things to the table and other people can benefit. So I think it's great that this master plan, because Hank was, he was frustrated after he tried so many years and put so many hours and.
This is his book.
I know.
No, he gave me.
Oh, he gave you this. Oh, yeah.
The same
When he
movie.
was leaving, when he was like, I think you can't leave, and his wife was involved with the library, so, I mean, there were great people
I think it has
involved.
to come from a place of taking care of each other as a community.
Yeah.
So I think that's what will appeal to people, and if you start looking at, because we had a very contentious select board meeting a couple of weeks ago where it got down to we could get a lot more money from if people build big houses and they pay more and all this kind of nonsense. And open space, we had a couple of very vocal opponents of open space with all the good open space work that's happening. So
That is all should be
anyway,
developed.
could I just, to your point, could I just quickly tell you that this might be something that this committee along with housing wants to get involved with. It says the development of the Westhampton Woods was initiated by a local committee of volunteers who saw a need for senior housing for people with modest means and was carried out with the help of Hilltown CDC. Major funding sources include the Federal Home Program, the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston. Some of the tenants also receive payments from the federal Section 8 rental housing. So it was very federal and a little bit of state.
Yeah.
So there's money there.
If I can just add one quick
Not just
note.
talking to our state people, that we should be
Yeah,
talking
federal,
to.
yep.
You got
Richie
Neal.
Neal and our senators.
As a senior who has a lot of interaction with other seniors, you're absolutely right. They look at the tax rate and they look at the houses being built and their mindset, and they don't take what you've just said, Janet, into consideration. We're building $600,000 homes. Where is the money going? And because their children are out of the house, they're not thinking about the educational end of it. So that's a good point that they need to realize. Each child is $12,000. So if you're sitting beside the $600,000 home,
Each child in the
Yeah.
elementary school is
Yeah.
$12,000, and the high school is
is
$17,000.
And that's what it costs the town.
And that's one of the big
That's cost
problems.
of
One of
tax.
those 12,000 one of
Plus
the
school
lowest.
choice, that also takes.
5,000.
Yeah, so, I
So
mean.
we're subsidizing all the kids that choose the choice in.
I remember early on, I had a finance person, I was on the select board at that time, said, what happened to a one-room classroom and a little desk? Why do we have to build all this stuff? Oh my God.
Put more than 20 in a
was
room
like-
and you're
I know.
losing
And
them.
one person said, the school gets enough money, the parking lot's full. They have enough teachers. It's like,
That's not.
We built that, we improved and expanded that
Into the
school,
kids'
and it
course.
didn't last a year before we already had hit our max.
That's true.
I mean, and so it's overdue. I'm surprised somebody hasn't said, you know what? We need more space. Stack them and rack them, you know?
So,
All right.
if you don't have any more questions about this, but any comments and any feedback,
I did just want to,
appreciate-
the last page, which were the goals of the master plan in regards to the senior center and the council on aging. Just to review them very quickly, the first one is to expand the number of staff by adding a full-time director and increase the number of hours for the part-time assistant. The group that's assigned to that is the select board. Connect the new senior center to any future wastewater system in town.
Yeah,
The last
okay,
page.
okay.
These are the goals that were set for the seniors, for the council on aging.
by the master
By the
plan.
master plan, some of the things, this is what, the goals from the master plan to the seniors
See,
in
we weren't
town.
involved.
So,
yeah, that's not good.
and
I think
then,
it's
I mean,
funny
nobody
that
talked
they're,
to us. I mean, I talked to Hank because I'm nosy, and I would ask him a question, and I knew he put a lot of work into it. But, yeah, I mean, the
Yeah, I don't know
property
where-
tax, we had a couple of people that, took advantage of that,
and we
but,
still
we've
do.
got it, we have 4 or 5 now.
Yeah.
yeah.
But, I mean, it's
They go
just
to the
interesting,
library.
as we fought to get a full-time director last year, that's one of the master plans implemented, the key
We
things
didn't
for the
know about
master
it
plan.
at
We
the
didn't know about,
Yeah, wow.
because we hadn't looked at it, so.
Well, we're not really quite full-time. We're working.
Right, we're working on getting there, but yeah, and then
I think
again,
it's
the
a good
wastewater
goal.
system. So these are the goals for the
I
senior
think we
center
need a
that were
bigger
set up.
facility before we have a full-time
Yes.
person.
Well-
It's just, the two, it's like building a house.
People
You have
aren't
to have a
using the
strong
facility
foundation
we have,
before you can
so-
go through.
Yeah.
I
When
don't
you
see us
have,
building.
when you have almost 3,000 seniors and you have capacity for 75 in that room.
Yeah.
So it is very disproportionate.
Well, if you saw on, I believe it was on Facebook, or maybe it was in one of the news, Hadley is spending 7-point-something million. You want to try to get that across?
So is Southampton.
That's but the
True,
construction
that's
of
right.
it is going to, the requirements, if they're going to have a kitchen, that's another thing, that adds to the cost, but look what we got. I mean, I fought at every meeting with the architect, and that plan went through without any thought about how that space can be used. The acoustics, the layout, the activity, the flow.
We had an architect and they didn't follow the,
Oh, please, that guy from Boston, I wanted to. I
All
can
right,
see him.
so anyhow.
We're still,
All right, thank you, and we'll
And you
continue
take
to
up so much
discuss and
time.
bring,
No, thank you.
bring
Well, I'm
information.
sorry that, I just feel very strongly about this because I put in time, and hopefully in my lifetime.
Well, thank you both for all you do on this select board.
thank you, Janet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
In my earlier days, I was like you, I was, oh, yes, I'll go to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Happy belated birthday.
those days are
Don't
over.
forget, there is a seat open on the select board in the spring.
yeah, coming.
I have an
How long is that?
on Sunday.
Somebody told me that now there's only 2 and 3 year terms, not
They're all 3 years.
Oh, they're all 3?
Yeah.
Oh,
They just
see,
started
that's how long
different
I went for 2.
LeBree's term is up,
you have
so he's not running again.
Okay.
Is this seat available in the select? board?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I hope I hear from some of you, and like I said,
We know
come to the
people
meetings.
coming, I'll be over.
She's coming, I just sent her a text, I asked her to come up at 10:40.
Tell him that we're ready for
Is that good?
Yeah.
Thanks, Francine. Do have to,
You're welcome.
I make a
We
motion
had a
to
meeting at
accept the
11:15,
treasurer's report.
so.
Oh, we haven't.
What the heck are you doing?
We got it ahead of class.
Actually, before we,
Oh, you mean you're in a special class?
You are too.
I know. She would sneak that by. I got those little warning words at the beginning of your comment before. They're in back here.
Right, no questions. Just went along.
Yeah, she
So
put us down.
Mark
She
will be
said-
up at 10:40, so that'll give us 15 minutes to review it. Do you want me to have her come earlier?
Yes, please.
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost 10:30, so I can tell her 10:35, so.
I'm going to have a shocker for everybody after Josie talks.
Oh, dear.
Okay.
So, just a couple of, pieces of information that I want to pass on before we vote. But the comment that Nilda had made about there's more money in the gift account than I had registered here. So actually, Joan and I met with Vicki, and it turns out that, well, for one thing, I couldn't find where that number was, anything. And there was, on the reporting, the accountant's report that we get, there was this little COA line. I never saw that before. And when I query Council of Aging, that doesn't come up. So that's why I never saw anything. But I did see it this month, and it's I don't have that information. That doesn't look like anything we've received. So Joan and I talked to Vicki, and it turns out that that was probably a
Data entry or something?
data entry and allocation that, because it really related to a grant from Walmart, which we never received.
Oh, either a Walmart refund or something, like if you purchase something, you get $150 back or $250. We think the police department got it.
So, or some other department got it. So we no longer have that
It was
$350.
misrecorded as COA.
Okay,
So-
so what about the
It
money
could be.
that was in there that we need to return to the Friends? There was.
Oh, that was already done.
That was already taken care of?
yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
That
okay.
was way back
Because that was
in
the
the
Walmart
Yeah.
thing never, I mean, I didn't.
No, there was no
have any-
Walmart thing. That
Yeah,
was
but
a
that's-
total miss,
It was still there, but she's gonna
because it wasn't ours.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she appreciated
It
us
was the
catching the
domino,
arrow.
but
The what?
No, that was Kohl's, and that was through a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that last column, actually, do you have this? I don't
treasury
think,
report, no.
I'm sorry that you're not, I just sent it out to the COA thing.
We have a group email, so.
So why don't you just take this?
If you need it,
So I'm very sorry. I'll try to remember to add you.
Okay, thanks.
The last column on the right, it says RH Disability Town, and that's because the Select Board very kindly granted that, or
Well, actually, the town meeting was voted to put $2,500
Right.
to cover some disability costs that wasn't covered by the FRITA grant.
Oh.
So
So
that's
Now we're
tracking.
paying Richard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see, Richard.
Yeah. I was going to ask what RH was.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it
You were
very.
inventing chart of accounts.
So that money is no longer being charged to the van wages expenses for FRITA. So that's very nice.
Yes, that was.
So that's
Ed came
in
up
here.
with that, and that was
Yeah.
very much appreciated.
And I guess everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. One of the things, Rainey, that you can't see on that, and when I send you future spreadsheets, if I can show you this, I have these little comments in the, and so each thing, it tells what is included in that amount. So, anyway, any other questions?
Well, my comment was that I think you've done an excellent job. I have no question, and I make comments because I want the information.
Sure.
But I think that everybody can agree that by having another set of eyes doing the research with Joyce's report, they're producing a report that gives the departments an early opportunity if they have a $50,000 budget, but ours is so small. And then now you have that extra information.
No, I was glad you said that, because I would not have I would not have found that.
Because we look at the reports before you do
yeah.
your treasurer.
Right.
Final treasurer
And
report.
it just never came up because it was listed as COA as opposed to Council on Aging. So I couldn't find that discrepancy.
In the grouping, yeah.
So
Great
thank
job.
you for that.
See, I wasn't going to take a lot of time. Make that motion.
I'll move.
Was the 540 taken out of, you said it was taken out of account? Was that a negative somewhere that was already
It
applied?
was a
Right.
350 or whatever, yeah, it was.
I'm sorry, which
No,
one
this
are
is
you
two
talking
different
about?
things.
Oh, okay.
Richard Fritta.
Yeah, so is there
So it
a
wasn't-
minus on one of these columns?
No,
No,
it's-
because we didn't include it under the wages. We
Okay,
just
it
put
had
it in
not
this.
And
yeah, and then
Vicky's
we
the
don't
one
have
that
to-
swapped the first week or 2 weeks that we had not the money from the council or from the select.
Okay, so it wasn't applied to and removed
So,
from account?
so everything's
Vicky
current on
did
the
it.
salary.
Everything's,
Okay.
yeah, what,
Okay, thank you.
before the town meeting, anything that was debited before the town meeting's been applied to the new
Okay,
number.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now I'll make the motion to accept the treasurer's
Do
report.
I have a second?
Second that motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Anybody want to abstain? Thank you, Martha, for being responsive. Perfect. I said, how's 10:30?
Oh, darn it. Well, I was having way more fun at the department head meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, you did ask if you could come up at 10.
No, it's nice to see what's going, hear what's going
Yes,
on.
absolutely. So we are being recorded as you're new to the group, so
Okay.
I'd like to make everyone aware of it.
Okay.
Wave to the camera.
No.
Okay, Martha, as we talked about the last meeting, about some of the senior tax exemption options and some of the local options that are available to us, I asked Martha if she could come up, and she's much more knowledgeable than I, and we have some documentation that we wanted to share as well about the options and try to answer any questions or capture any questions. So if we don't, make a decision before May, then maybe the next town meeting, but our goal is to try to make a decision prior to May whether to proceed or not, so. I'll turn it over to Martha.
Where do I start?
You want to hand out stuff? So there were two things.
I left it on the table.
Where is it?
It's downstairs on the office isn't locked. Let me go run down.
Okay. I mean, we can do the overview first if you want, and then,
Do you want to finish the rest of this until she gets back?
okay, what's next then?
Recruiting board members, recorder for the board.
Okay, so, and perhaps it's been resolved, and if the camera works, we're in good shape, but since this is Lori's personal recorder, and there's been a request to have things recorded in lieu of that, I put it on the agenda to see whether we wanted to discuss buying our own recorder for the COA board. And it was recommended, I think through town council, if we're going to need to use this for other people, because it's Lori's personal recorder, that we should have our own recorder. So putting it out for discussion, see if anybody feels it's necessary,
Okay, so these are,
and we'll to be followed up after this.
these are two separate ones. This one is for seniors, which is the, you can pass those along. The senior is $1,000 exemption. That's the one that we're looking to reduce the age from 70 to 65. And then 17D is 175, and that's just taking assets into consideration. Well, that run up the stairs.
I thought, haven't you been running lately?
Yeah, I think I'm a little weakened at the moment. So they are separate, so I will pass.
You want to
that
cover this
along.
one first, just? So this is the one we were talking about, right? We had handed out a sheet at the last meeting. Did we hand that sheet out at the last meeting? It had talked about assets.
Yeah, so there was some questions on, I think you meant, April was mentioning like annuities and income from that.
That was just, yeah.
Okay, so that was, so the options for 41C are reducing the minimum age. the amount, which we've already maxed out at 1,000, it starts at 500, and we've already maxed out at 1,000. That's as high as it can go. Gross receipts, we are currently at 18,000, which is your income. 18,000 for single and 20,000 for married. That can be increased to 20,000 for single and 30,000 if married. So there's still some give there.
Which of these two documents are you sort of
So I'm,
referencing?
The first
so
one
it-
that was
yeah,
read
the
out.
41C,
Plus
the
is 41.
seniors.
Okay.
The 17D includes seniors, but it's also for surviving spouses and minor children of deceased parents.
So this, the income level for one individual is what?
What it can increase to or what it is now?
What it is now?
For a single, it's 18,000.
Okay.
And that can go up to 20, and 20 currently, and can go up to 30.
But we're looking at keeping it there and just increasing the exemption.
The age.
The age, lowering the age, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, lowering the
or
age.
you go up to the maximum and you keep the age where it is. I mean, those are options.
Well, the max is what, 1,000?
20 and 30.
The max for the exemption is, we're at 1,000, but increasing the income limit.
I see.
So we're not there.
So is the income, is it one source of income? Like if people are getting Social Security, is that considered income?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So they're,
So
It's
anything,
not just
any,
income, it's assets too.
well, there's two different things. There's
Yeah, it-
income and then there's an assets category as well, right?
so that's
Yes.
if they have money in the bank. Let's say they have 400,000 in the bank.
Denied.
Denied.
So they have to apply and they have to submit forms and they have, and it's up to the assessor's office to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements or the maximum requirements for being eligible for this. And they have to show their tax returns. I mean, so it's not just,
Bank
you know,
statements.
somebody puts in for an exemption and it's approved. So there's a qualification process that goes on. So if we look at back in 2010, where the poverty threshold for a family of, one person 65 years and older was 10.5. Okay, so this is 10 years later. So we're talking a pretty low income level to give them, to lower the age at 65, you know, to make them eligible for the $1,000, right? Or leave the age and increase the income level. That's what you're saying the two options are.
Yes.
So 10 years later, I'm sure that level is pretty close to poverty level, as defined by the federal government.
I think it's smart to lower the age, and then you'll get people possibly that would stay a little longer in town.
Right.
Because if you wait to 70, you know, people are already probably thinking about, you know, what's my other options?
They may also still be working, because we also have that.
Then they wouldn't be eligible.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. I mean, we're talking about really
It's
strict
a-
guidelines for eligibility.
I mean, on an emotional level, I think, you know, I think the dollar is a secondary consideration for me, but I still want, I mean, what is the goal, you know, to get this information and have more people have access to, and we have no way of knowing, because we don't know how many are out there. And we don't know what the effect is going to be on the town. So,
If I could just make a comment, I hear what you're saying, Nilda, but I would think that the number will be fairly low if you're living in Southampton. And if the requirements for the annual income are so minimal, if somebody is at that rate, they really deserve an exemption because they are bordering on poverty.
yeah, I agree.
And I guess in a year
It's
that,
just so silly to have to go through all this stuff. I mean, it's
But that's how you
It's
you
sad
weed
because
it
they're-
out, you know, who's eligible and who isn't. As you said, they may be living on an income of 10,000, but have 400,000 sitting in the bank that they don't want to touch. So, you know, you need to be able to weed them out, which this does. But you also need to help the ones that are truly at the $10,000 level.
Or 15, what, 18?
18 for single,
Or 18.
yes.
Which, in today's dollars versus 9 years ago dollars, is
You know, you
probably
could
pretty
spend-
close to that.
Yeah, 18,000 a year with just that big Y.
And there is a Social Security deduction that changes every year that we get from the state. So if you are at 23,000, the Social Security deduction for is like 4,300. So then that'll reduce it down to meet that threshold. So there is that option, which is, I mean, but it's hard when you are like $20 over or $100 over. It's just unfortunate because
Pretty cut and dry. There's
I-
no emotion involved at that
Right,
point.
yeah.
And it doesn't come off of, it comes from the overlay fund?
It comes from out of the overlay, and I think I misspoke about reimbursement. So the reimbursement, there are options. There's 41 where you start. Every community starts. It's the state standard of 41, and then the town has to adopt to go to 41C. So we adopted it in May of 1987, and that's where it gets capped with the reimbursement. So I believe the number's 29. So I don't know for a fact if that is 29 back in 87 that we had for 41. So it's $500 for that last. So we are under that now for our 41C exemptions. So we do get reimbursed, but if we increase the number, we don't get reimbursed for that amount.
So
So it
at
might
this
be.
moment, we get reimbursed.
We
If
do.
we reduce the age from 65 to 70.
You mean
From
70
70 to
to
65, thank you. We would not be reimbursed on that class of individuals, that age group, or not?
So it just stops at the number. So 500 per exemption, up to the number of exemptions granted in the last year clause 41 was used. And so I have to think that it was 1986 was the last year that it was, FY 86 was the last year it was used. So this was adopted in May of 1987, which would have been just before the FY 88
Fiscal year.
fiscal year. Yes. So this would have had to have been in effect by July 1st, 1987 to be able to qualify for 88. So it doesn't get specific on what that capped means, but I think that where it stops. At 41, we had 29 applicants that received an exemption.
Okay.
So we are under that now,
Right.
so it's possible if we get up to 29 again, we're still reimbursing.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't have
Because
enough
we were
time
at 24 and we are capped at 29.
Yeah.
And with the aging population exploding more than double, they haven't made any changes to that cap.
No.
So the cap is related to the number of people that can be covered or the actual income of those people?
The cap is the number of people who received an exemption under the clause 41. That's where that reimbursement gets capped. So anything over that under 41C we don't get reimbursed for that.
For the number of people?
Number of people.
So would we have to, so by putting an article, right, we'd have to do an article for it to be accepted?
It has to be voted by the town.
Then that would increase the cap.
No, the cap stays where it is.
Okay.
It will stay that way.
Why? I mean,
Because we don't use 41 anymore, so when we voted to go to 41C, that's where it stopped.
Oh. So what would you I mean, is there a way around that? I mean,
The cap.
The cap.
yeah.
Until statutes change. That's in
So we're
the,
capped at 29, whether it's $1,000 or whether it's 70 years or 65.
that's my assumption. So I forget the number of exemptions we had last year.
24, I think, is the number
24.
you gave me.
Okay,
before
and we
the
just
last meeting.
increased that
recently.
recently.
You just signed up on one.
Now, Martha, so this exemption amount, would it normally start out at 500?
Yes,
Okay.
And we're at 1,000.
we're at 1,000. Yep.
So we've already voted as a town to increase that to 1,000, which is the
So if they were
max.
approved, they would automatically get 1,000?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to digest.
And they have to file every year,
Yes.
so they don't, it's not an automatic renewal.
And do you, I mean, you know, we forget about things. Do you have a good gauge as to how many people are repeaters, you know, that they do take advantage because they're on top of it, or do you send notices, or does
I
anybody?
do send applications out. I send the applications out to our exemptions, our people, and our chapter land. It's been done. I'm going to keep doing it. Some communities send reminders out. Some leave it up to the taxpayer. You need to know when your filing dates are. I send them out, and I tell them, even our new applicants, that to expect it in the mail. I will send it.
And do they come in for help for you to help them with the?
Some.
Yeah.
Some copy it. Their income doesn't change a whole lot if they're just receiving Social
They
Security.
just change the year?
They just change the year, the figures change a little. I don't know how strict in the past they were with requiring documentation, but it was kind of hard for some to have to come up with all that. And I felt bad initially, but going through the college process with my son, we have to jump through hoops. So if you're looking for any kind of benefit or financial aid, you have to prove things. It's just, you know, you can't make assumptions.
We
And
can't, yeah.
I always bear on the side of I want to do the most I can for these people, but that's not doing my job.
Yeah.
So it's uncomfortable to ask for financial
Yeah.
information, but I have to do it.
I know.
Any other questions of Martha? Do you want to talk
Very
about?
complicated.
It is
I can't
very
say I have
complicated, yes.
a good handle on it, but don't worry about it.
It
I will
is,
find
because then
my
you have to-
information elsewhere.
You get into domicile and residency, and you have to live in the community, and for it, yeah.
10 years or something, you have to be
I'm always
residential.
learning new things. and
You know, what I wonder is, how can these people that are sort of breaking the law can get away with it? Because you have to jump through, so the people that are honest have to prove that they can withdraw money out of the bank, and I don't know how they do it. How?
Well, it's like the
It's
DA,
amazing.
Dave Sullivan always says, they make a career of it.
Where's the reimbursement? Is it one source? The reimbursement for the 29?
Should be one.
one source. So what?
In other words, when you get you said you get reimbursed up to the number of 29. Where is
No,
the
they're all in
reimbursement
this
come
copy sheet
from?
already written on.
The state, whatever coffers the state reimburses communities.
Like Department of Revenue or something? Do you know what department of the state reimburses?
Department of Local Services. So it doesn't say exactly what department. We are under Division of Local Services, Bureau of Accounts, all under the Department of Revenue. So after April 1st, I will submit all my veteran and senior exemptions. I didn't have an amount because under Gateway, are you familiar with Gateway? It's where we submit everything. That's where we submit all that, the MDM1, and it doesn't have an amount, an actual figure of what we got back for reimbursement, like it does our senior exemptions. So I'm not really sure what the amount. Vicki might know from last year
I'm just curious.
if it all comes in one large lump sum, or if it's broken down, like this is your reimbursement for 22E, which is 100% disabled veteran, and this is your reimbursement for 41C. I'm not actually sure how that comes in. Vicki would probably know.
But it probably shows on the cherry sheet. Isn't there a breakdown on when they certified free cash? They also have a revenue stream.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, the amount is covered.
So the other one, the other exemption, because I confused things a little bit, it wasn't a spread of 170, this is a whole different law, 17,
17.
which is $175,
Yes, 117D.
17D.
And there's really not much to do with that one. I mean, I tell people I'm embarrassed to tell you how much. You either get 1,000 or you get 175.
So it is that broad. I mean, you either get this one or you get this one.
Right, as
You
long
can't
as
get
your
both of them.
assets.
Right.
Yeah, so even if you own another piece of property and vacation homes.
But does this have a local option for age? Because this says you must be 70 or older.
That one does not.
It doesn't have an age exemption, okay. But this is just another exemption that seniors are available for.
Yes.
We're going to lose our spot.
We'll be there
She's
in a
looking
second.
at her clock.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going
Any-
to be the first row.
There's only one row.
Oh, that's what she's going to be from line dancing, so I feel...
So are there any other
I missed
questions
it
for
yesterday,
Martha? Before I let you go, and then we can think about it again and come to a decision at the next meeting. We don't have to rush to a decision today.
So what are our decisions that have to be made?
Whether we want to support lowering the age of eligibility for 41C
70 to 65.
from 70 to 65.
All right, so we make that, we decide whether or not we support it, and then it goes to the
Well, we have
select
to
board?
decide whether we want to put an article at the town meeting
Okay.
for the warrant and have the town makes the final decision.
We have to be prepared for any questions, because, you know, it could be something that, is that like the health insurance, the retirement account? You know, I mean, because that's a lot of money, but...
We also decided about raising up the income limit, just the age.
We did. Yeah, I can leave
Either
this.
or, right?
If you want, I have notes on it, if I could get it back. But this is just where we are currently and what are the allowable adjustments, if you want to hang out to that. And then you can get them. So that's what you can vote on. Yeah, I think people's only concern is if it's going to be shifted over to them. My guess, residents. If you allow this and more people are eligible, how will that
More
affect
than
my
the
taxes?
29, yeah. But I thought it comes out of overlay. It doesn't really come out of the,
It comes out of overlay, same with abatements, and so if taxes continue to go up, more people will be filing for abatements, and if we grant abatements, they're all vying
They're all-
for money in the overlay.
Because they're
Right.
all projections, right? New growth, abatements, they're
Yeah.
all on that. It's free cash, too, now that I kind of, in the first portion.
okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I felt that the chair should memorize all this and present it to us at the next meeting, because...
Yeah, exactly. That's why I bring my
Who's
principal
memorizing?
assessor to this meeting. 'Cause, yeah, I'm like spinning too, like, I'm like, what?
All right,
Give me
well,
another
you can
couple
always
years
stop
on
by
the
our office.
assessors.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Martha. So do we want to have a quick discussion on the recorder? Is it something you'd
Can I
like to?
just add something about the recorder? We have always had our own recorder. There was a gray one, that was the one that Jen had. I had my own, and which I do. And so there's no recorder in the office? You haven't found?
I didn't look for one. No one asked me to.
Yeah.
Oh, we can
'cause I-
check that out
'Cause, I
first
mean,
if there's.
we used to have one, so, you know.
What does-
I
I
assumed
would
that we
just comment, normally, and I've been secretary in a lot of committees, I would handwrite the notes. I've never used a recorder. Because of the tremors, and one of the problems, one of the side effects of the tremors is the difficulty in holding a pen and being able to write. That is the reason I use the recorder. Otherwise, I would be taking handwritten notes. No.
Well,
It's an accommodation that you use for yourself.
Right.
with the COA, what occurred was that sometimes Jen, as a director, would take, I was the secretary the whole time I was on the board, you know, in previous life. And so sometimes I ran the meetings. I couldn't do this and then conduct the meeting, so Jen would always have the recorder as a backup, because sometimes she transposed the minutes as opposed to me. You know, it was a shared. So that was how, and sometimes people spoke very softly or they didn't, you know. So it was really a convenience, and so that she could do it when I didn't have to give her a draft and so forth. So,
I mean, we can have Joan
Thank you
check
for not
and see.
having to do that. I really don't want to take that on
No, you're
myself.
not taking that on, there's no reason to. And if Nilda's going to be recording and I don't have my recorder, then she can type the notes. I'll be forgetting my recorder every meeting.
So anyway, do we want to table the decision on the recorder until we check and see if there is
Yeah, I
one
can see
somewhere?
it.
I
There
can't,
is
if you
a
haven't
little
seen it
gray,
yet.
It's a little long, this happens to be
I think
small, but-
I think there is something similar to that in the office. I don't know how it works, and nobody's ever asked me
It
for
should
it.
have their little booklets with it, because I know Jennifer was really good about keeping all the booklets of everything that she bought.
Okay, so
somewhere.
we'll table that until,
Okay.
you know, and I
Just
just,
ask me, I know everything.
okay.
So what you want is
So
to
I
have,
feel like that's
besides
like
the
a-
personal recorders, you want to have one from the COA
Because if somebody wants,
to borrow it?
yeah, then it's, it's a
And you know,
shared
the other thing
resource.
is, like I said to Janet, I said, if we had the meeting too on tape, then, you know,
wouldn't be
that's
right.
that's
Which
a
is- the
guaranteed.
problem
I
was-
mean, but you can't always hear two.
Nilda asked to borrow the recorder. I hadn't typed the minutes, and we could not coordinate a time when I could come in and let her listen to the minutes.
Yeah.
Because Lori's last minute Charlie, the day
So there's
before
no
the-
tape in there. It's
And it
just-
doesn't save it from month to month, so I mean, you can't get January's
You
out of
could,
this.
I have files in mine where you can download the folders, and then I put a date of the meeting, because when we were having all those executive session minutes, and we were meeting 3 times a month, you know, it
Yes,
was,
but
it was
you
a
don't-
lot.
you haven't been doing
But,
it,
yeah,
so.
I
yeah.
don't have that capability.
But, you know, it's not required. I mean, I just did it
Okay.
because I wanted to cover in case somebody came out of the woodwork.
Okay, so the only other new business, very quickly, and because Nilda, I understand there's some concerns about outside groups using the senior center. Is there something that, can you share with us what your concern is?
No, it's not outside groups.
Oh, okay.
Oh, 3 people have informed me that there's been access to the senior center when Joan hasn't been there. And so,
It's probably more than
I-
that.
I-
We have the
Mother's
the
Club.
blood, the Mothers Club, the blood drive.
Chorus. Which are things that have been going on for years.
Yeah,
and
the
then
custodian, he can go in.
does he have a master key? Because
You'd have
we
to ask
never
him.
had.
He must have.
We never gave a key for the office. Jen was
Oh,
very.
no, he can't go in the
Right, right,
office.
so
Yeah,
that's
the
He can
office
only
is
go
off
in the-
limits.
yeah,
So
he can't.
I'm trying to think an answer to your question. So I knew from the time, and I think if Ed shared the email with, that we had people that had their own codes that they can get in after hours. They went to the police and got a key, and now I understand that's changed. So,
No, that's the
No, that's the same.
but there was only one person signing off a key at the police station with the dispatcher for Wednesday night, and nobody else was, they didn't have names.
There's about 4 names.
So I knew
Ed is handling all.
So I wrote it to him because he's a department, you report to him, but more importantly, the building.
Yeah, the facility is on
Right.
him, right.
So the Mothers Club, who's the other one?
blood
There's
drive.
Southampton
The
Chorus or
Women's Club, the
something.
Mothers Club,
The chorus.
Historical Commission.
Historical Commission.
They come in, but they meet like, what, once a month or every other month or something?
Probably every other.
And,
And they can't get into the office.
Right, the
That
office.
yeah, but I wasn't, but there again, because the selectmen said no one should have a master key, other than the people that, so that was.
Yeah, nobody has a master key.
Yeah.
I don't have a key.
But so you haven't left the building during the day, and then people can get in?
Not without somebody in,
Like
somebody
Darlene is in the
there.
office, you mean?
Somebody has to be here.
Yes.
I mean, the center should always have somebody in attendance during regular office
And that's
hours.
correct.
Yeah.
If you're not here, I'm not saying that you have to be here, but somebody, because, not that anybody.
Well, say I had to go out, well, it was a Tuesday, I went and brought somebody from Dover Fit home, So Darlene was here.
Okay, okay. Well, so
Or I would lock the building and set the
I
alarm.
don't, up to recently where Joan can say, gee, Nelda, it's nice to see you coming to the senior center. I haven't been here. I don't come, I'm not the police warden. I'm not making trips. So I get these calls and I've answered them honestly, like that Thursday. I don't know because it's not something, so then I
What
asked.
kind of calls are you're getting?
What I just said, that
The
people.
building is empty.
Yeah, that they were having
People don't
access.
even know that I'm in the office because I'm sitting in
Well,
the
I mean,
back.
yeah,
But
in the old days, Jennifer was so quiet, she kind of,
Are these people giving you their names? when they
oh, yeah,
call you?
yeah,
You
yeah.
have to get behind.
Yeah, no, I know who they are.
So I mean, maybe
And I'm
just
making
read
the
your
inquiry.
inquiry to Ed
I
instead of
lock the door and set
taking
the
it on
alarm
yourself.
whenever I close the building. I lock the door and set the alarm.
Another meeting.
And then the only other people can do it.
I know, and they have a
The
class.
custodian has a
Feel better.
key.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'm
you're
sorry,
sick now?
Another meeting. Well, I'm cold. It's George's fault. He brought it
You and
home.
Martha.
I know.
We'll all be
Take
sick
care.
by
It's
next
all-
week.
That meeting.
Take care, talk to you soon.
I had it in January, I don't want it again.
Are we closing?
Yeah, so,
Yeah, please, because
yeah, you guys, I just wanted to copy that, Nelda, because I didn't know where it was coming from, and I just wanted to make sure we were
Well, I
all
will
on the
tell you
same page.
that I'm going to share. If I have to bring it to the board, I will. However, I didn't because it was very clear from, she reports to Ed. Ed is in charge of the building, and that had an issue. If you brought it up, I wasn't going to bring it up because.
Yeah, I mean, but
to
as
me-
a board member, he comes to me and says, do you know what are you having these, so then,
I didn't even copy you.
I know.
I didn't copy
He
you
knows I'm the
because of-
chair of the board, so
Yeah.
if some board member
Well-
comes to him, he was gonna ask me what as well.
Well, I'm a board member, so I
I know,
keep
that's what
them-
he said.
Yeah,
That's what I
well,
just said, if a board member comes.
just hit stop and
Okay,
turn the
so
recording.
can we adjourn at 11:02?
I make a
Do I have a
motion that
motion?
we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, wait,
Late.
close this one off too.
I'll hold them up for 5 minutes.
I have to go to the bathroom.